we're going to be making this clip which goes on top of this piece. So we're going to go back to our Blender file. We're going to tab into edit mode. And we want to select a couple vertices here to use as a starting point. So we're going to select this vertex and then hold shift and select this other vertex, which if this was mirrored, this would be the exact same vertex point. So you want these two vertices, and you're going to do shift E to duplicate, right click to cancel, and then press F. That'll make an edge. Then we're going to press P to separate and choose selection. So now those two vertices with that edge are a separate object. We're going to press tab to go to object mode, right click to select this edge, tab into edit mode, and now we have our starting point. We're going to press A, then we're going to press E to extrude, right click to cancel, and bring this in some. We're going to add a modifier, we're going to add a mirror, and we're going to turn on clipping, and we're going to turn on this option. Then we're going to bring this to the center to merge them at the center. We're going to do Control R, left click, right click. That's going to put another loop right in the center. Then we're going to select these vertices, press delete, and choose vertices. And now we're going to turn on the Y mirror, so now it's mirrored on the Y as well as the X. Next, we're going to select these vertices, E to extrude, right click to cancel, and bring these out a bit. You want to bring them out a little bit further than this point, or you can do a little bit less if you want. And then just bring this up slightly. This has an upward curve, and it goes down and then back up again. And we're going to do E to extrude, right click to cancel, bring this over, and we're going to bring this down. We want to bring this down to pretty much the bottom of this part, so we're going to grab it on the Z-axis, hold control, snap it to one of these vertices. And this point we actually want a little bit higher up, so we're going to bring this a little bit higher up on the Z-axis. Then we're going to E to extrude, right click to cancel, and then bring this over. Then we're going to do Control R, left click, right click, and we're going to bring this down, hold control, and snap it again to the bottom, so we have this little dip at the bottom. If you want to, you can always select these vertices. I would move them together, these two edge loops, and you can move them up and down according to whatever you feel is appropriate. Maybe move mine up slightly. If you want to, you can also hide this piece. You can do tab to object mode, select this piece, press H to hide it. Select this, tab back into edit mode. I'm going to press A twice and do Control N to recalculate the normals. Now we just need to start adding in some bevels here. So we're going to do Alt right click, we're going to do Control B to add a bevel, do a small bevel. Then we're going to Alt right click and then switch to edge select, Alt and Shift right click so we have these two edges. Do Control B and do another bevel, trying to keep the quads a similar size in this area. And then we're going to tab to object mode, make sure you're in the tools menu and turn on smooth shading. So now we have the basic shape of our clip. The next thing we want to do is add in this little detail that's on the side. I'll give you a little view of what I'm talking about. So we have this little detail that goes on this side only. But before we do that, we should actually add in a few of these bevels around the edges, because this part's not mirrored and the rest of it is, so we're going to try to add in the parts that are mirrored first. Another thing is that this part gets tapered, so if you look at this from more of a top view, you can tell that this part gets tapered in something like this. So in order to make that, we're going to select this edge. You can do C for circle select and get all of these edges, and then just bring it in on the x-axis until you have more of a taper. So you should have a shape similar to this. When you're done, you can always adjust the size to be less or more depending on what you feel is appropriate. Once that's done, we're going to add in some bevels. We're going to do Alt right click, Control B, do a small bevel here. Then we can Alt right click, Control B, do a small bevel here as well. Again, keeping similar quad size right there. It'll just make those edges a little bit less noticeable. And one more thing we can do to round off this corner here. I'm going to go to this side because it's the actual side. We're going to do Control Shift B. That'll do a vertex bevel. Just do a small bevel just to round this off slightly. Then we're going to do 7 for top view, K for the knife cut tool. Left click on this vertex, press C to make it a straight line. Left click over here and press enter to make that a quad again. And that'll give us a nice bevel at that corner. This shape is essentially finished. One more thing we want to do is do Control R, left click, right click, and you can just slide this over a little bit if you want to. This is going to be the width of this piece here, so you want to just adjust this to be as wide as you want it to be. So you adjust these two edges on the y-axis to make it wider or thinner depending on what you feel is correct. Next, what we're going to do is select these two vertices, and we actually need to apply the mirror modifier first. So we're going to press tab to go to object mode, apply the mirror modifier, tab back into edit mode, select these 3 vertices, E to extrude, right click to cancel, bring them out slightly, E to extrude, right click to cancel, bring them down slightly. And we don't want these to be any further down than the bottom points here, because these points would be technically touching the metal part, so we're going to have to bring these up and snap them to these points so that they're no lower than those points, and that'll be the lowest point there. Now we can alt right click on this edge, and again we're going to add a bevel. We're going to do Control B, mouse wheel up once if you want, or you can just leave it like this. I'll probably just mouse wheel up once, give us a nice edge to work with, and then tab back into object mode. If you want at this point, you can do Alt H to unhide this piece here, and you can take a look at kind of what we have. We're going to select this piece again. We're going to do Add Modifier, and we want to add a Solidify modifier to give this some thickness. We're going to drag this to the left. It's going to bring it upward in this case for us. And you just want to adjust the thickness to be something that you think is correct. Once you're happy with it, you can apply it. And make sure to take a look at this side as well. If you want to, with these selected, you can select these bottom ones as well and then drag this in slightly to make it closer to this piece if you think you want it closer to that piece. To correct some of the shading, what we're going to do is switch to Face Select, and we're going to Alt right click to get this outer edge here. We're going to do I and then B and do a small inset. Then we're going to select all the faces on the top, so we're going to select a face, use C for circle select. And we're going to select all these faces here, as well as these 2 at the very edge. So make sure you get these 2 at this edge, and these 2 at this edge. Then you can do I and do a small inset again. If you want to, you can zoom in more when you're doing this so that you can do a similar distance to your original distance. And that should sharpen up everything and make it look a bit nicer. One thing I actually forgot to do, so I'm going to just tab and then do Control Z till this is gone. I forgot to select these, so I'm going to select these as well. And then do I and do a small inset here. If you feel you made this piece too wide to begin with and you want to change the width of this, I'll show you how to do that real quick. We're going to right click to select on this piece. We're going to press tab, and we're going to go to top view by pressing 7 on the number pad and then Z for wireframe. Switch to vertex select, select the vertex here, do B for box select, and select all of these. Then do Control I to invert the selection. And now we have everything except for the circular holes selected. So we can do S to scale and then X for the x-axis and just scale this in slightly. If you want to, you can do the same for this other piece. It's going to be a similar process. But before we do that, we actually can scale these circles as well. So if we want to scale the circles, we can do Control I and then do S, Shift, and Z to exclude the x-axis and scale these down slightly as well, just to match the fact that we scaled down these other pieces as well. And you can do similar for this piece if you want. Just right click to select it, tab into edit mode, A twice, S and then X, and scale it on the x-axis slightly. And then when you're happy with it, just go to File and Save. Thank you to our awesome Patreon supporters. If you'd like to become a Patreon supporter yourself, head on over to patreon.com/StephenBrooks. Thank you for your support.